with is resource misallocation. How do we know it's a resource misallocation? We know that because it's resource misallocation because think about this. Marginal social benefit is 200, marginal social cost is 150. So when the two values are different, right, you will never, um, you know, uh, you will never operate at the optimal level. So when marginal social benefit intersect with marginal social cost, when marginal social benefit, which is downward sloping, intersect with marginal social cost, that is the point which is socially optimal. That is the point that is QS, socially optimal. Yes or no? Since social benefit is greater and social cost is less, it's resource misallocation. Right? That was a tricky one. Great. Let's move to the next question. The next question says, a cost benefit analysis concludes that a nuclear power station project might be socially worthwhile, although it will take 10 years to bring into operation. So there is a nuclear power station that the government is thinking of building. It will be socially worthwhile, meaning it will be socially beneficial, but it can take 10 years to get functional. Why might a government decide not to undertake the project? Cost benefit analysis has no method for valuing long-term impact of the project. Cost benefit analysis is only suitable for private sector projects. The government believes that the project has too high an opportunity cost. The government policy is to restrict the extent of the market system. Right. So why, if it was socially desirable, if it's socially desirable, right? It's already mentioned. If it's socially worthwhile, and it takes 10 years to come into operation. So why would the government not decide to operate? Why would the government not decide to continue with it? So why would the government not want to continue with it? Right? C, absolutely excellent, right? Because the opportunity cost is so high that the government doesn't want to commit that much of an amount, right? Very good, excellent. Now the next question says the diagram shows the budget line indicating combination of good Y and X that a consumer could buy with a given income. The combination shown by point S and T both lie on the same normal indifference curve. S and T, okay, interesting. Now this is very interesting. It says the points S and T both lie on the same normal indifference curve. So that indifference curve has to go like this. That indifference curve has to go like this. Only then the both can lie on the same indifference curve. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? This is the budget line, and all the 4 points are on the same indifference curve, right? Now we know that indifference curve is tangent on any one of the points. Indifference curve is tangent to budget line on any one of the points. But in this case, it says S and T both lie on the same indifference curve. So indifference curve must be passing from this in this way so that it's touching both the points. Now the question says which statement is logically correct. Which statement is logically correct? The consumer is indifferent between combinations W, S, and T. W, S, and T, indifferent. Interesting. The consumer prefers combination T to combination W. What do you think? The consumer prefers combination W to combination S. Prefers W to combination S. And the consumer prefers combination Z to combination T. That's quite a difficult one, right? What do you think? Did you get the first part where I explained why are the two? Think about this. The combination shown by points S and T both lie on the same normal indifference curve. So if S and T are lying on the same indifference curve, then think about this. We can't make an indifference curve like this because in this case, only S is lying on this indifference curve. Similarly, we can't make an indifference curve like this because in this case, only W is lying on this. And we can't make an indifference curve like this because in this case, only T is lying on that. So if there's an indifference curve where both S and T lie on the same indifference curve, then there would be other indifference curve that would be higher than this, right? We know indifference curve are parallel like this. So these are all the possible indifference curve on which the indifference should lie on budget line. It should be A, right? The consumer is indifferent between combination W, S, and T. No. Think about this, because when are you indifferent? You are indifferent when you lie on the same indifference curve. What does indifference mean? That you are equally good. You are equally happy about the two combinations. And that is when you are operating on any 2 points on the same indifference curve. So between S and T, you will be indifferent because they are lying on the same indifference curve, but W is not lying on the same indifference curve. W is lying on a higher indifference curve. Are you getting me? Indifference curve are parallel to each other, so it would be like this, right? Arba, are you getting me? And then another indifference curve will be parallel like this, and then another indifference curve will be parallel like this. So W is technically lying on a higher indifference curve compared to S and T. I repeat. So if S and T are lying on the same indifference curve, which means the indifference curve looks like this, right? The indifference curve somewhat looks like this, right? Now, if W will lie on a higher indifference curve, because we know indifference curve are always parallel. And the more you move to the right, the more you move up or right, the more preferred an indifference curve is. Any indifference curve that is further away from the origin, any indifference curve that is further away from the origin, that is the one that is more preferred. So W is lying on a higher indifference curve compared to S and T, right? Did it make sense? I know it's very tricky, right? So that is what, right? So the answer for 4 should be, the answer to 4 should be C. 4 is C, right? So I mean, so whenever there's a question like this, when they are saying that, this is true, so the best way to do it is to just try to, rather than imagining that thing, just make it on the graph. Just make it on the graph so that you are more clear on what that position shows, right? So you quickly made, if they are on the same indifference curve, so it can only be like this. Otherwise, if I make any other option, it won't be, because in this case, S is on the curve, but T is not. If I make like this, T is on the curve, but S is not, right? And the shape of indifference curve is always downward sloping, and it bends towards the origin. It bends towards the origin, right? It can't be like this. It can't be like this, right? We know it will always be downward sloping and bending towards the origin. So if that is the case and indifference curve are parallel, then this means that W will be on a higher indifference curve, and the higher an indifference curve is from the origin, the higher an indifference curve is from the origin, the higher the utility it has, the more preferred it is. So that's why W is preferred to S, right? So this is something. Okay, now moving to the next question. The next question says, okay, the table shows some of the assumptions of perfect competition and monopolistic competition. Which pairing is correct? What are the assumptions? Identical products, freedom of entry in Z. Barriers to entry, differentiated products. Large number of firms, small number of firms. Differentiated products, barriers to entry, right? Read it again. Which combination is showing you the correct pairing? Which option shows you the correct pairing? Right, yeah. So now what do you think is the correct answer? What do you think is the correct answer? A, absolutely. Because in perfect competition, we know products are homogeneous, identical, and monopolistic competition again, right? So, I mean, freedom to entry and exit. Even though the barriers might not be completely non-existent, even though in monopolistic competition, the barriers might not be completely non-existent, but they are very low. They are very low, right? Does it make sense? So the answer should be A. Let's check. So 5 should be A. 5 is A. Got it? Okay. Now, this being said, let's move to the next question. What is the feature of natural monopoly? What is the feature of natural monopoly? Right? The monopoly produces a product that has no close substitutes. Average cost fall over the entire range of output. The monopoly controls the supply of its raw material. Diseconomies of scale set in at low levels of output. Do you remember natural monopoly. So natural monopoly is anything where the government exists, where the government exists, and it is the government. I mean, that is the definition of a normal monopoly. That is the definition of a normal monopoly. Now, let me tell you what natural monopoly is. Right, right, yeah. So let me explain you. It's a very simple concept. You don't, I mean, there's nothing else that you need to know, right? All you have to do is to understand natural monopoly is that it is a government-owned business where it is not feasible to have multiple firms. Let me write down this definition first and then explain you. A government-owned monopoly which exists in a market, which exists in a market where it would not be feasible, where it would not be feasible to have multiple firms, to have multiple firms. Okay, have a look at this. Now, the idea is plain and simple. Think of government-owned monopolies in Pakistan, PIA, right? Pakistan Railway. So let's take the example of Pakistan Railway or WAPDA. WAPDA and Pakistan Railway are good examples. In the case of Pakistan Railway, right, you have to have the entire railway tracks, right? So you need to have railway tracks, and those tracks are not easy to build, not easy to, like, they're not cheap, right? They're very expensive. So what I'm trying to explain you over here, and a lot of these tracks in Pakistan and even in India are the ones that the Britain left, are the ones that the British built, right? Obviously, then we, what is that called? We repaired those, and we kind of, did some repairing and all that stuff. But the original ones are still the same. A lot of the tracks that we use in India and Pakistan are the ones that the British, like back in, I don't know, 18th century, right? They left, right? So what I'm trying to say that if you have two railway companies in any country, right? So then how would that work? Just wait for a second and think about it. If there are two railway companies in a country, then would the other company have its own railway tracks? Are you getting me? Now, in the case of roads, it's pretty simple, right? You can have you can multiple cars can access the same road at the same time without any inconvenience. Whereas for the railway, I mean, would you have a separate railway track? And if they're using the same railway track, then who will coordinate the timings, blah, 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 and so on, right? Right. They can do that, but then that is taking a lot of space and a lot of investment as well. Same goes for WAPDA. Think about this. WAPDA is an electricity producing company, right? That has its own, what is that called? Dams, that has its own, water, hydroelectricity power stations, or let's say whatever it is, right? Now, the initial investment is very high, and it is therefore not very feasible for the new firms to enter, right? In some countries, right? So coming back to the point, one feature of natural monopoly is that the average cost fall over the entire range of output, which means that one company is um, more beneficial. Let me check, it should be B, right? So one company is there should be only one company in that market, one business in that market. Right? Now, what it means for the average cost to fall over the entire range. So what it basically means, think about this. The more you produce, the lower would be your average cost. Think about this. In a normal business, I said that the average cost graph would be U-shaped. You would remember, right? So for normal business, I said that the average total cost will be U-shaped. So it initially falls. So you have output on the x-axis and you have average cost on the y-axis, right? So it falls to some extent, right? Up till this part, it's falling. Up till this part, it's falling, right? So this is economies of scale, right? When the average total cost is falling, this is economies of scale. And for the part where it starts to go up, that is known as diseconomies of scale. Easy, simple, nothing confusing, right? So this is diseconomies of scale. But if you try to imagine that the average total cost is constantly falling over the output, how would that look like? So that graph looks like this. So you have your ATC, and in that case, it will look like this, right? Like this, like this, right? So this is your average total cost, right? So it is not recommended to have multiple firms in the market. That is a definition of average natural monopoly. So do remember, what is natural monopoly? Natural monopoly is a state-owned monopoly in a market where it's not feasible to have multiple players, right? Above, is this clear? And this is all what you need to know. There won't be anything more complicated than this, right? Just give me a second. I'll be back real quick. You just read the question. Just give me a second, right? I just need to put in the charger. Sorry, can you hear me? A firm is already the monopoly producer of product X. Which strategy might the firm pursue in order to prevent new firms from entering the market for product X? Right. So if you're a monopoly in any market and you want new firms, right, they'll lower their price further. Exactly. Predatory pricing is when you deliberately reduce your price to prevent new firms, new and smaller firms from entering the market. So 7 is B. Oh, I was thinking predatory pricing. So limit pricing versus predatory pricing. See what it is. Limit pricing strategy used by the existing suppliers to restrict the entry of new entrants, which are currently out of the market. But on the other hand, predatory pricing strategy, which is used by one supplier to cut the other supplier existing in the market. Oh, okay, okay. Arbab, did you get this? So limit pricing is when you're trying to stop new firms from entering the market even before they have entered. No, 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 no. Think about this, think about this. So let me give you a real life example and then you'll understand. Think about this. So let's say, okay, Food Panda is already in the market. Yes or no? So Food Panda, food delivery app, you would know, is already in the market. Now, if a new business wants to enter the food delivery market, right, whatever its name is, right, XYZ. So if you're deliberately keeping, if Food Panda is deliberately keeping its prices low to prevent the new firms from entering the market, that is known as limit pricing. Because this firm has technically not entered yet. It is thinking of entering. Or let me put it another way around. If Mega Ledger, artificially, or let's think about Noon, right? So Noon was keeping really low prices up till now. Now they have started charging. So their lower prices was discouraging new players to enter the market. Now listen to this carefully. Noon Academy started off with very low prices, which discouraged and scared off the new firms. Why? Because they knew. I mean, how can they compete with something that is completely free? So if a platform is saying that we will teach students for free, how would a new firm even expect to compete with something that is free? Yes or no? That is limit pricing. Limit pricing because the new firms haven't really entered yet. Limit pricing. So new firms who were thinking of entering the market are not entering the market, fearing that Noon Academy cannot be challenged. They are charging no prices. That is limited prices. Right. Yes. From the funding that they have. Yes, they do pay to teachers. But if Noon wants to outpace, right? If Noon wants to, what is that called? Wants to, uh, throw off its competitors, like, to throw them off their feet, like Mega Lecture is competitor, right? For Note. So what they will do, they will set predatory pricing. We are already in the market. It's not that we are new player. We are already in the market. But even if Note continues to keep prices lower at the moment, so what it's trying to do, it's trying to do predatory pricing because we are already there in the market. So just remember, when you're trying to keep new entrants away, to keep new entrants away, to keep new entrants away, right? That is, I mean, the thing is the same. At the end of the day, you are keeping your prices low. So to keep new entrants away, that is limit pricing, and this is to throw off your existing competitors so that they cannot compete with your prices, to throw off your existing competitors. Did you get this, Arbab? Right? So that is the difference. Yeah, so Noon is paying their teachers. Now they've started charging very recently. But what they do is that they have a lot of funding, so they pay their teachers through that. But obviously they were paying, otherwise no one would have taught there, right? Okay, so Arbab, sorry, we will have to stop here. Right? If you have any other questions, I think these are your last two exams, right? Or you also have some other subject left as well, right? So continue with your MCQs practice, right? Perfect. And whatever difficult questions you come across, the best idea is to just share the pictures of those, take a screenshot or whatever, right? And share it in the group or send me individually, and then we can discuss that in the class, right? So we will continue this in the next class. Right? Okay, take care. Have a good day. Take care. Allah Hafiz.